I'd like to start this part of the lecture really just talking about societal innovation and how society constrains innovation. And the perspective this week is really the perspective of sociology and anthropology. So those are the two sort of ways, the academic ways of looking. We want to understand how they think about this thing called innovation and how society behaves with respect to it. I like to think of this as how a society projects its values. So innovation is in fact a way that society projects its values, the way that we assert ourselves, the way that we intervene in the world, the way that we change the world in ways that actually are in line with our values. But also, it's how society protects its values. And so how society says, this thing is special to us and your innovation threatens that, so we're not going to allow that to happen, or we're going to ignore that thing, or we're going to ban that thing, or we're going to make it illegal for you to do that thing. And so this is what we're interested in, is how society puts its values out in the world, but then also how society acts to protect those values. The three things we're going to look at values and identity, that is sort of the collective beliefs that a society holds, and how it makes sense of those things, where identity comes from. We're going to talk about social control, again, the guidance and the behavior and holding people accountable and how that works, and then also the history, right? So what came before? What are the obligations that we incur because of what came before in the past? And so these are the things we need to really think about and actually understand. How is it that these three things can constrain innovation for us? Let's start with social values and personal identity. So the collective beliefs and sense of self that we have, these, whether we're a part of something, whether we feel like we're a part of something, whether we stand apart from something, these things are all defined with respect to society, right? There have to be other people around us in order for us to have these like the sense of belonging or the sense of difference and separation from something else. And so this social identity, let's talk about it as who we are. As a society, who are we? What do we aspire to? What do we feel like we hold dear? What are the things that are important to us as a society? Let me give you a little example here, how we are together. So when you get old, apparently you're supposed to go play a lot of bingo. And so we see, in America at least, there's this cultural understanding, I guess an idiomatic understanding of this game, bingo. Bingo is a parlor game. It's a game of chance. You have a ball, a little thing, and you pull a ball out, and basically you have to put marks down on your card. And what happens is, it's very different from this thing we call gambling, like going to a casino. In some ways it's sort of the same, but sort of it's not actually, because gambling in casinos is a very different thing. Bingo is considered a genteel sport. It's something that is acceptable, right? Versus gambling, which is something that's actually looked down upon in our society. Well, interestingly, a company came up with a way to combine these two things. What they did was they actually built a device that has a bingo math. So in terms of regulation, this thing runs like a bingo machine. There's a server in the back room, and what happens is a bingo game is called, and the results are paid up as a slot machine. So if you get blackout, like in bingo, which is a certain score, then you would get 3 bars, bar 7, bar 7, bar 7, and win a jackpot in that way. And so what looks like you're playing a slot machine was actually a bingo machine. Why would they do this? Well, it turns out that bingos is regulated differently than slot machines. Slot machines are these very highly regulated gambling machines, and they're not called games of chance. They have odds. They are very tightly regulated. There are only certain states in the United States where you're allowed to do this thing called playing gambling, do proper gambling. On the other hand, bingo you can do pretty much anywhere. And so what happened was a lot of these machines started appearing in places where people conventionally had not wanted gambling. They had not seen gambling. And so when you go to the machine and say, hey, this looks like a slot machine, they say, no, it's just a bingo machine. And so in many municipalities, they had to begin to change the laws and really sort of crack down on this kind of subversion of the law, that society says, bingo is not this, bingo is this. Bingo is this kind of person, this nice person, this person not doing it for money, she's not trying to live off this, she's also not ruining her life or gambling away her life savings, unlike people who spend time in places like this. And so here a company has actually taken something that was this positive value around bingo, and changed it into something else. What's society's response to that? Well, society will kick back and say, this is not us, this is not how we see ourselves. Let me return for a second to the human cloning example in the same way. And so Dr. Bosselier thought, for some reason, this might be a good idea to clone a human. Why would she think that's a good idea? What do you think it is in a person that would say, I'm going to clone a human? An act that basically causes all the world to become, turn in revulsion and sort of turn against you, ban what you're doing, what you're trying to do. One thing she may have thought that was a good idea is because of this guy. This is Rael. Rael's an interesting character. Back in the 70s, Rael is a Frenchman. Back in the 70s, Rael was driving in this car and he saw a light on the top of a volcano. And so when you see a light on the top of a volcano, normally you don't drive towards that. You drive the other way, right? Because there's a light on top of a volcano. Maybe the volcano's exploding, maybe the meter's hitting, whatever. But anyway, Rael went up to the mountain. And when he got up there, he said he saw this silver craft and with the door down, and out of the door came someone. And this is who came out. This is actually not the real alien. This is the artist's rendering of the alien. But this alien being came out of the spaceship. It was a spaceship, and it came down, and this alien being came out. And the alien being talked to him. And the alien being, he calls him the designer. And the designer is basically an alien who had done some cloning and put us here. We're actually, humans are on Earth because we're the result of these cloning experiments, or these cloning colonizations, may call it. I have not spent enough time in understanding the religion to understand this, but basically Rael founded a religion around this idea that these aliens came to him and talked to him about what it is that, the reason that humans are on Earth. And it turns out that Dr. Bosselier, so this is Dr. Bridget Bosselier, is a bishop in his church. And so as a bishop in this UFO religion, which is centered around cloning, of course she's going to clone. That becomes the highest value. That becomes something that they want to do, that they think that cloning is important because we're here because of these clones of alien races, and so she's going to help us get closer to that being by doing this thing called cloning a human. In fact, they were thinking about, at least there's some suspicion that they were going to clone Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson was big in these supporter of this organization, and so, but they claim that well, they won't give you a lot of information about whether, in fact, they're going to try to clone Michael Jackson or not. So, Dr. Bosselier claimed the birth of the first cloned human. Why? Well, because it was central to her society's values. So she was outside of the dominant society. They have a cult-like organization. She's a high member, a high priest in that cult. And so this idea of cloning was central to her values, even though she wasn't looking around and sort of seeing what was going on around outside the dominant society's values. And so again, these values are driving this behavior at the same time, so driving her behavior from the inside, whereas society outside is pushing back and saying that's not okay.